Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a point in all of our lives where we stop and ask, why does love feel so heavy? Why do we keep investing in people who only give us half their heart? Why does it seem like we're always waiting to be chosen while slowly forgetting to choose ourselves? Today is not about blaming others, it's about breaking a pattern, because the moment you start choosing yourself, something extraordinary happens. The cycle of settling begins to end, and what begins in its place is a life rooted in worth, clarity, and peace. We often find ourselves stuck in the gray areas of relationships, trying to decode someone's silence, mixed signals, or hesitations. You wait for the message that never comes. You replay conversations in your head, hoping you missed some hidden clue that they do, in fact, care more than they're showing. You rationalize the delay, telling yourself they're scared, healing, or not good at expressing emotions. But deep down, a part of you knows the answer is already clear. People aren't confused. When someone truly wants something in life, they go after it, they make room for it, they prioritize it. If you were the person they truly saw a future with, the hesitation wouldn't exist. The delay wouldn't be there. You wouldn't be stuck in limbo, waiting for clarity that never seems to arrive, because when someone's sure about you, you don't have to convince them. You don't have to constantly prove your worth or wait for the timing to be just right. They move forward, they step up, they act. We tell ourselves stories to soften the blow. We say they've been hurt before, or they don't know how to love properly, or they just need space to figure things out. And while that might be true in rare cases, more often than not, it's just a shield that protects us from facing a more painful reality, that they simply aren't choosing us, not fully, not clearly, not consistently. It's not because you're not lovable, it's not because you did something wrong, it's not because you weren't enough, it's simply because, for whatever reason, you're not the person they're choosing right now. And that truth stings. It stings because you've shown up. You've given them the best parts of yourself. You've been patient, kind, emotionally available, and all the while you've hoped that by being all those things, they'd finally open their eyes and see what's right in front of them. But people don't need endless time to see value. When something matters to them, they don't risk losing it. They don't make you wait in confusion while they figure it out. They don't disappear for days or respond with lukewarm affection. They don't give you half their heart and call it love. The truth is, you're not asking for too much. You're just asking the wrong person, and instead of stepping up, they're stepping back, not because they're unsure, but because they're not choosing you. And they know that. They've likely known it for a while, but they'd rather keep you around for comfort, for attention, for convenience, than be honest about what they're not feeling. So they do just enough to keep you hopeful, just enough to stop you from walking away completely, but never enough to truly make you feel secure, and this is where your self-worth comes into play. Because if you believe you have to wait for someone to choose you, you'll keep settling for people who never do. You'll get caught in a pattern of overgiving, of chasing, of hoping, of bending yourself in half to fit into someone else's indecision. You'll confuse emotional availability with love, and inconsistency with mystery. But love is not a mystery. Love is not a puzzle. Love is not something you earn after proving yourself. It's something that someone offers you freely when they see your worth and meet it with intention. The person who's truly meant for you won't send you mixed signals. They won't leave you wondering. They won't say one thing and do another. They'll choose you, and you'll know because you won't feel anxious, uncertain, or overlooked. Waiting for someone to figure out whether you're it is a slow form of heartbreak. It erodes your confidence, it drains your spirit, it chips away at your self-trust, and over time you stop recognizing yourself because you've spent so long trying to be chosen by someone who was never going to. You dim your light, shrink your needs, hold your breath, just to maintain the illusion that it might work out. But it's time to see it clearly. They're not confused. They've made their choice, and it's not you. The only question left is, will you now choose yourself? We do this thing in relationships, especially in the ones that feel uncertain. We create stories, not because we're delusional, but because we're hopeful. Because hope is easier to hold onto than truth. When someone doesn't show up the way we need them to, when they pull back, hesitate, or keep us waiting, we start filling in the silence with reasons that make it feel okay. We explain their behavior away with softness, so we don't have to feel the sharpness of being let down. They're just afraid. They've had a hard past. They don't know how to love properly. They need time. They're not ready, but I know they care. And maybe some of that is true. Maybe they do have a past. Maybe they do feel something for you. But here's the part we can't keep ignoring. None of those stories change the fact that they're not showing up right now. They're not choosing you with clarity. They're not matching your effort. They're not meeting you where you are. Still, we tell ourselves stories to make it bearable, because admitting that someone doesn't want to be with you, even when you've given them so much of your heart, is painful. So we cushion that blow with imagination. We create a future version of them that's more courageous, more consistent, more emotionally available. We hold onto the potential instead of facing the reality. And the longer we do that, the harder it becomes to leave. You tell yourself they just need a little more time, and so you wait. You give them space. You lower your expectations. You try to be more understanding. You stop asking for clarity for fear of pushing them away. You silence your own needs just to keep the possibility alive. But love that depends on your silence isn't love. Connection that survives only because you're doing all the emotional labor isn't connection. It's self-sacrifice. And here's the hard truth. Just because someone could be great doesn't mean they're great for you. Just because someone has the potential to love you deeply doesn't mean they will. And just because you see what's possible doesn't mean it's ever going to happen. There's a difference between someone going through a difficult time and someone stringing you along. There's a difference between a person needing space to grow and a person using distance to avoid commitment. One has intention behind it. The other is just convenience dressed up as confusion. And deep down, you know the difference. You can feel it. When someone is working through something but still values you, they make the effort. They communicate, they're honest, they take responsibility. They don't make you guess. But when someone is simply unsure, uninvested, or unavailable, the pattern is always the same: inconsistency, vagueness, and just enough affection to keep you hanging on. You deserve more than breadcrumbs. You deserve more than someday. You deserve more than being put on pause while someone sorts out how they feel about you. The longer you justify their delay, the more you convince yourself that waiting is a form of love. That patience will eventually be rewarded. That endurance is proof of your worth. But all it's really doing is teaching your nervous system that anxiety is normal, that uncertainty is acceptable, and that your needs can be negotiated. You don't need to explain their behavior to yourself anymore. You don't need to write a novel of excuses every time they pull away. You don't need to tell your friends they're just complicated. No one is that complicated. People do what they want to do. People make time for what matters, and if they're not showing up for you, that is the message. No translation required. It's not your job to complete their emotional journey. It's not your responsibility to carry both your heart and theirs. It's not noble to wait forever for someone to finally be ready. It's just painful. At some point, hope becomes self-abandonment. At some point, waiting becomes bleeding. And at some point, loving someone who won't move forward becomes the reason you stop moving too. You can love someone and still walk away. You can believe in their good heart and still not let it break yours. You can see their potential and still admit they're not ready to live up to it, because your life, your love, and your time are too valuable to be spent inside stories that never actually come true. Choosing yourself isn't about being selfish. It's not about giving up on love or building walls so high no one can reach you. It's about finally looking in the mirror and saying, I deserve better than this. It's about reclaiming your power after handing it over, piece by piece, to people who couldn't handle it, or didn't value it, or only wanted it on their own terms. When you don't choose yourself, you end up waiting. Waiting for the bare minimum, waiting for attention that's sporadic, waiting for someone to treat you how you're already treating them, and that wait becomes a pattern, one you start calling love, but it's not love. It's a habit, a cycle, a loop you keep spinning in because it feels familiar. Settling doesn't always look like misery. Sometimes it looks like almost chosen, almost loved, almost seen, almost enough. And we cling to the almosts like they're promises. We convince ourselves that if we just hang in a little longer, give a little more, bend a little further, that maybe, finally, the scales will tip in our favor. That maybe the person we're giving everything to will finally wake up and return it all. But here's the quiet truth that no one likes to say out loud. People rarely wake up. And if they do, it's often long after you've run out of energy to keep waiting for them. Choosing yourself means you stop trying to be enough for people who never had space for you to begin with. It means you stop breaking yourself into digestible pieces so someone else can feel comfortable. It means you stop saying it's okay when deep down it's not, because settling doesn't always look like failure. It often looks like silencing your standards, like convincing yourself that late night texts are intimacy. That chemistry without consistency is connection, that someone liking you a little is worth sacrificing a lot. It's not always painful at first. Sometimes it just feels like a slow erosion, like you're disappearing gradually, losing small parts of yourself one compromise at a time. But when you choose yourself, everything shifts. You start listening to your discomfort instead of suppressing it. You stop explaining away disrespect. You stop romanticizing confusion. You start recognizing the moments where your needs are not being met, and instead of negotiating your worth, you walk, not because you're bitter, not because you've given up on people, but because you finally realize that being alone in your peace is better than being together in your pain. And here's the most beautiful part. When you choose yourself, the people who weren't really choosing you tend to fall away, and that can hurt. It can feel like rejection, but in truth, it's just the result of no longer dimming your light to make others feel comfortable. The moment you say, I won't shrink anymore, is the moment your life begins to change. You start attracting people who meet you at your level, who respect your time, your energy, your heart. You build relationships where you don't have to constantly prove you're worthy of being there. You create boundaries, not walls, and those boundaries become the foundation for real connection. But it all begins with that one choice, the choice to stop settling, to stop mistaking struggle for love, to stop making excuses for behavior that leaves you doubting yourself. Choosing yourself is not about ego, it's about alignment. It's about showing the world how you want to be treated by the way you treat yourself first. Because when you stop accepting crumbs, you make space for a feast. When you stop tolerating confusion, you invite clarity. When you stop chasing, you start receiving, and the person you become when you choose yourself. That version of you is powerful, not because they have it all figured out, not because they are immune to heartbreak, but because they've learned that their value doesn't decrease when someone else fails to see it. The cycle of settling ends not when someone else finally chooses you. It ends the moment you decide you've always been worth choosing, and that you'll no longer wait for anyone else to catch up to that truth. This is your invitation to stop shrinking, stop waiting, and stop negotiating your value. Choosing yourself isn't the end of love. It's the beginning of the right kind of love, the kind that doesn't ask you to beg. The kind that doesn't require proof, the kind that feels calm, not chaotic. So walk away from the story that says almost is enough. Because the moment you choose yourself, you stop settling for anything less than someone who chooses you back, with the same clarity, effort, and depth you've always been willing to give.